Welcome back for another video. This video is going to begin our shorts. So we're going to have some short videos that are going to explain different things about different toolpaths. This one is just going to happen to be about geometry selection for dynamic milling. So there's a lot of different things we can do with this. Dynamic milling is an awesome path. It's probably my favorite path in all of MasterCAM. So let's go ahead and get started. You may hear some sounds in the background. School has started, so there's machines buzzing. It's like a beehive out there. All right, so let's get moving here. So we're going to start off with our dynamic mill. Now we have this part here. It's a large plate. You can see we have our Kurt vise. So I just put that in for visualization so you can kind of see what we're doing. The first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to machine around the outside of that and get that basic shape out of there. We're going to hold on to the bottom here. You can see the jaws are holding a little bit below the part, so we have a carrier strip we'd have to take off then eventually. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to worry about selection and geometry selection and what we can do here. So this screen here is going to be the main focus of what we talk about. Okay, so outside of this, if I want to machine the whole outside, then my machining region is going to want to be my stock. So I can't select anything. If I don't select anything, it is going to assume the stock is my machining region. So I'm just going to leave that blank. I'm going to want to come from the outside. So I don't want to stay inside the stock boundary. I want to come from outside the stock boundary, and then I want to avoid the outside of this part. So I'm just going to select the bottom perimeter of this part. And if you don't have a bottom perimeter that basically encompasses the whole outside of the part, or a top perimeter, you have to draw, basically use geometry to draw something, and then you use 2D geometry to select it. Okay, so I'm going to hit check, and let's go ahead and hit check again. Grab our tool, 1/2 inch end mill, and I'm not going to set any parameters in here. I already have them kind of set. Everything we're going to set is the depth. So I'm going to go ahead and select that depth, and we're going to break through 40 thousandths because we're going to assume there's a radius on the bottom right mill. So let's see what we got. All right, so you can see right there, essentially what we have is it milling out the outside of our part. Take a look and simulate it here quick. There we go. So that looks good. So that's what we want. Okay, let's turn that off and let's try some different scenarios here. All right, so the next scenario, we probably want to mill away all the material except for these two bosses that we have sticking up there. So we're going to use dynamic milling again, and our machining region. So we've already machined around the outside of the stock. So I'm going to leave that blank for now just to show you the difference. Again, we're going to come from the outside and machine everything but these two bosses sticking up. We are going to avoid them. So I'm going to grab both of those. Another way of grabbing these, if we look at these selection methods, if I have bosses selected, I can grab, let me unselect everything. If I have bosses selected, I can just grab this face and it'll automatically select them. So that makes it super easy. If you have more than one or two bosses, you can really select them fast. So go ahead and hit check. From outside, yes. Okay. And it's going to select my depth again. Oops. Depth's going to be right there, and I'm going to turn breakthrough off. And it's calculating. Okay. You can see it's machining away everything there. Now, the one thing you may notice is it's machining away this material here that's already gone. So, to make that more efficient, what I'm going to do is go in, and I'm going to select my machining region. I'm going to select the bottom of this, because technically that's the only stock that's left. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check, and once it regenerates, you'll see that that part of the path is now gone, and it's only cutting away the stock that's existing. Okay, let's go ahead and let's actually cut or get rid of this here arc shape. So let's go ahead and machine that out. So we're going to select dynamic milling. Machining region. So our machining region basically is going to be this outside shape. So let's go ahead and select that. Now, there's a couple of ways we can select this. We can we'll actually probably have to use this here loop, or we could just use the surface. So I can just pick the surface, and it's going to pick the outer boundary of that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check. And again, I'm going to come from the outside on here. Now, here's the problem. Technically, I want to come from the outside, but I need to stay inside of here. So if I select inside, let's see what it gives me. Select my depth. Check. Okay. So it stays inside of this here boundary, but the problem is it also stays inside of the outside. So we need to add something called an air region to this. And I keep clicking on this toolpath. You can get there either way by clicking on geometry over here or by clicking on the toolpath type and coming over here to chain. So I need to select these outer edges, and that's going to tell it it's an air region. There's nothing there to run into, so you can actually start from off the part. That's basically what this means. Also, I can pick outer open edges for this, and it will actually select them. Of course, you can always just pick them manually, right? You can always do that and hit end and select it that way too. But this here selection, this outer open edges, really makes it easy if you have a lot of stuff like that on your part. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check. Now you can see it's actually starting from off of the part, and it's machining that out, but it's still respecting this boundary here. All right, let's go ahead and do this next one. This is very similar. So in this case, we have that machining region again. So I'm going to go ahead and select that machining region. And in this case, if I select here, it's only going to give me that outer edge. So that's not going to work. The best way to get this one is actually just to do the loop and grab the loop. Hit check. And of course, we want to stay inside of this here boundary that my cursor is moving around right now. But this is definitely going to be an air region. So let's go ahead and select that as an air region. Of course, I can do this outer open edges for that one. Hit check. And I also don't want to machine away this little island here. So that is actually going to be an avoidance region. And it doesn't matter if you pick the top or bottom. It doesn't make a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and hit select that. All right, so now I have three selections here. I have a avoidance, I have an air region, and of course I have a machining region. I'm going to go ahead and hit check. Set my depth. Check. And there we go. So it's actually starting off of the part, and it's machining in, as you can see right there. All right, let's move to these two pockets we have right here. Okay, so we have two pockets. The question is, can we do these both at the same time? They are actually not the same depth. So if I were to check these and I were to analyze an entity, you can see here, this one is at negative 1.35. This one is at negative 1.25. So we have 100 thousandths difference between them. But we don't need to use two different tool paths. We can actually still do this with one dynamic path. What we will do here is we'll grab our machining regions. So I'm just going to select this one and this one. I'm going to go ahead and hit check. I obviously need to avoid these two little parts right here. So I'm going to avoid those. Oh, I selected it. Grab that one and hit check. Go ahead and hit check. Now keep in mind I did stay inside. I got to stay inside of these because they're pockets. Got my tool. I'm going to change one little thing here, and that's my entry motion because I got a pocket in, so I'm going to helix into these. And I'm going to select my depth. Now, this is where the key is to making this one path. So if you select incremental and I make it 0, it is going to put the bottom of the tool at the same location as the geometry that I selected. So since my geometry was on two different planes, one was at negative 1.25, one was at negative 1.35, it's going to put the bottom of the tool at both of those separate z heights. I'm going to leave everything else absolute because I want that all to be in the positive. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check. And now you can see it actually created it at the bottom of the part. Last thing, I need to machine away the tops of these, because right now they're sticking up a little high. So if we simulate real quick, machines everything away. It's going to machine this corner away. Machines that out. Now it machines our pocket. It avoids our two little islands there, but the problem is they're at full height. So we need to go back in and we need to machine them down a little bit to where they belong. So again, I'm going to use dynamic mill. And this time I'm going to create a machining region of just the outside of this. And I'm going to say from outside, and I'm going to hit check. And I got to set my depth, which incremental 0 is fine because I picked the tops of them. So I can pick that. And you can see there, it's actually machining the way. Let me turn some of these other tool paths off so you can see it a little better. And there we go. It's actually machining those away. Now, it is plunging. We're coming from outside. That material is already removed. So plunging is fine, perfectly fine there. So let's go ahead and simulate. See if we can speed this up a little bit. Helix is down, machines that out, avoids these two islands. And then it machines those away. Now, I didn't put a finish pass on any of this stuff. New in 2025, we can put a finish pass on our dynamic mill, but I left that out for this. That'll be in another video where we'll talk about all the parameters. We still have to look at our containment region. So let's take a look at this path, I believe. Yeah. All right, so this path here, let's hypothetically say that we have maybe strap clamps on this. So we milled it out, now we're strapping it down to maybe a plate. It's not in the vise anymore. In fact, we can even turn our vise off. Let's go back to here, turn our vise off. And we're going to avoid that. So what we can do is create a containment region. And we can imagine this containment region is going to contain our toolpath inside of this. So we'd imagine there's a strap clamp right here in this corner and down in this corner. Okay, so let's go ahead and give that a shot. So if I go into parameters, I'm going to go ahead and go to my containment region, and I'm going to select this. So I'm going to grab my wireframe, select that, check, and I'm going to go ahead and regenerate that. And at some point, it will regenerate. Okay, so you can see there, now it contained it to that shape. So if we go to our top, it essentially avoided our toe clamps or our strap clamps that we have on here, okay? So that's what your containment region will do. I'm going to go ahead and turn that path off. Now, lastly, we have an entry chain. Okay, so let's take a look at entry chain. Let me find the right path here, and I actually removed this other path. I separated this into its own so I can demonstrate the entry chain here. Let's go ahead and go to our geometry. And you can select this in two places. I do not like to select it here because there's other stuff you have to select. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and select a point. So let's select this point. If I look at this from top, I'm just going to tell it, okay, I either want to plunge at this point or I want a helix on this point. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check, and I'm going to go ahead and hit check again. I'm going to regenerate that. Okay, so you can notice that it's not actually centered on that point, right? That's because there's other settings in here that you have to click. Right here, I can also, this is that point. So I can also select that geometry in here, and this is where I like to do it. Because if you want it to center on that point, then you need to click this button anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check, and it should regenerate. Now you can see it is centered on that point. That also works with a plunge. So if I pick plunge, check, it will also plunge right on that point. Now you'd assume that there's a hole drilled there or something if you're going to plunge, obviously. The other option is I can actually do a custom chain here. So if I do a custom chain, I'll select this, check, and regenerate this. All right, notice it still plunges. Again, that's why I don't like to select it in there. You have to select custom use entry chain, and we're going to go ahead and check this. And also, this is where you control your ramp angle for this too. So this is actually going to create a ramp, that shape. So it's going to ramp down. Now we're starting way up high. That's just a matter of changing our top of stock and stuff like that. But we can actually watch that. Let's play it. Now, of course, we're ramping in the air, but... And there we go. And it starts our dynamic mill from that point. So, those are basically all of your selections for geometry and how you select your geometry. I think we covered everything for the most part here. Let me just see if we've got anything else in our solid selection. Cavities, I believe I went over this, but cavities will just select cavities. If you select a surface, unselect that. Bosses, we'll select a surface. It'll select all bosses on that surface. And then we've talked about outside edges, and we definitely talked about outer open edges. And then partial loops, obviously, the face. If you pick the face, it'll pick all edges. So if you ever want just outer edges, you'll pick outer edges, and it'll just give you the outer edges. So essentially, that's what these all do. Stay tuned for more videos. We're going to go through all of these parameters and what they do. So we're going to use this same file. We're going to adjust some of these so that you can see what effect they have on the toolpaths.